If you want to watch a movie where the main character does more twitching than emoting, this is the movie for you. Jamie?
Yes.
David?
Yep.
Let's go watch Scanners.
Everyone out there, welcome to another. It's a 10th now, right?
No. This is 20. We have.
Lord have mercy, 20 of these we have done, and welcome to the 20th episode then of tonight's podcast or today's podcast of Good Times, Great Movies. I am here, as always, as part of your hosting team, Jamie Lorello. Alongside me is DP McCambridge. And tonight, actually, we have a special guest.
So special. And I really had to say, our guest, first of all, is David Blakesley. You can say hello, whatever you want to do.
Oh, yeah. Well, definitely Doug, Jamie, and that vast army of Good Times, Great Movies listeners out there. I'm very thrilled to be part of this awesome happening podcast.
You know that it's just me listening back to this, right? There's no vast army. There's nothing. It's just me. Sometimes Jamie listens, but it's pretty much just me.
Well, I'll tell my dear old wizened Aunt Prunella about this, and that'll
excellent,
triple the audience.
Awesome.
Okay.
And I do have to say, and I don't want to spend the entire podcast just fawning over our guest, but I will, only because I'm relatively new to the. I don't know when the podcast universe started.
The podcastosphere.
Yeah. But I started listening maybe in 2010, 2011. And I knew I wanted to listen to stuff dealing with film, and I jumped all over the place. And I don't know, David, do you know of the Auteurcast? It doesn't exist anymore, but
yeah, right. Well, Rudy and West for sure. Yeah.
So I used to listen to that, and I loved it. And then I stumbled upon you guys at Criterion Cast, and I've been listening ever since. So it's.
Well, I don't know if you know, but Rudy was one of the founders of Criterion Cast.
Yeah, okay, I think he was there before I got into it, but I'm.
Right. Yeah. He and Ryan and Travis and Rudy started Criterion Cast back in 2009, I think. Mm-hmm. The same year that I started my blogging series at Criterion Reflections, and Ryan found me and kind of invited me to kind of link up with them. I did a guest appearance talking about an old Jean Renoir film from the 1930s, Voodoo Safe from Drowning, which don't bother looking it up because the audio is terrible. I was such a novice to podcasting. I had this really cheap little $5 Best Buy mic, and I just plugged it in and figured, they'll pick me up just fine. But I learned a lot about podcasting since that first kind of abortive attempt. I mean, they did put the episode up, but the sound was pretty blotchy, so it's kind of a hard grind to get through. But that led to bigger and better things. I started writing a column for Criterion Cast, and then we got this idea to do an Eclipse series episode, kind of their obscure DVD line, and that's just kind of blossomed from there. So, I've really enjoyed the relationships and the connections and just the opportunity to really dig into really fun and unusual movies that I probably would have never seen if it hadn't been for this little scene that I've fallen into. So, I'm definitely glad to be part of this, and I've been doing some guest spots on a few other shows, and glad to add this one to my resume.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're here to talk about 1981 Scanners, and David, you mentioned that this is a different film than you're used to talking about, and
this isn't totally new territory for me, but it's not the kind of thing that I've been called upon to expound and offer my erudite opinions. So, here I am.
And it's the kind of movie that if anybody had basic cable in the late 80s or early 90s, you probably saw it. I mean, I don't know. I can only assume how much of it was cut out when it was shown on TV. Jamie, you're shaking your head. This
I had not. Yeah, I had never experienced it. But I did.
Well, let me ask you a question before we get into it. I mean, as far as Cronenberg goes, I mean, you're familiar with The Fly, of course.
Yes,
and
yes,
beyond that, anything that you know of that he's done or that you've seen or remember seeing that he's done?
No, I can honestly say not. I know. Am I awful? Is that awful?
No.
No, it's great.
Okay.
No, I don't judge people for films that they haven't seen yet.
No, definitely. I think at one point I recommended Crash after one of our episodes.
Yes. But not the bad Crash.
Not the bad Crash that everybody instantly hated after everybody loved it when it came out. Yes. No, the weird sex car crash. Yes. Okay, well then this will be a lot of fun. So let's just jump in, shall we?
All right,
this is going to be great. Okay, so it's David Cronenberg. This was 1981, and I think it came right after The Brood. Is that right? The Brood was 79. I think this was his next film. So we're introduced to our hero, the hero of the film, sneaking in a back entrance at a mall. I guess it's a mall. Right?
I think it's a food court. Yeah,
like
sort of a mall.
Right, a food court
Yeah.
where he proceeds to steal food from people. He takes some guy's fries. He takes a cigarette away from another guy sitting at a table.
Yeah.
I had to rewatch that because I was like, where did he get this food? Where did he get this cigarette? Sadly, first time I watched it twice in preparation just to let you know.
Did you?
Oh, I'm dedicated here. Yes.
Well, I will say I never podcast or blog about a movie without watching it at least twice, maybe 3 times. So I do dig in. So
I like it.
That's amazing.
Good man, Doug. I endorse it.
I'm glad you're here because Jamie tried to shame me when I said I watched Desperately Seeking Susan 3 times before we talked about it, which is a little embarrassing. I will admit to that.
I always find more on the second and third viewing. If it's a movie I'm going to really talk about, even if it's a piece of crap, I want to know that. I want to analyze that piece of crap.
You gotta get in
and know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. You want to be sure it is that piece of crap that you thought it was the first time.
Somebody cared enough to make this thing.
True.
What's
story.
behind that?
True story.
So our hero seems to be a homeless derelict. And he's very quietly shamed by an older woman who is sitting at a table actually not too far from him. But I guess we start to get the sense that he has some sort of psychic abilities.
Yeah.
Because he has weird facial contortions and then this...
His eyes start pointing in different directions.
Yeah. And I think there's some...
I'm sure that was the audition piece that nailed it.
I think there's some forehead sweat that begins to bunder up there. And then, the poor woman just goes into a full-on seizure, basically, right?
Yeah,
She just...
Her seizure performance was really good.
I wrote that down. I was like, her performance is top-notch. That was an incredible... She just goes for it.
Authentic,
Yes.
I do love how then it appears to be just by coincidence that there are 2 men in trench coats that just are hanging out in the same food court that immediately...
Yes, we found one.
Right. They run
Yeah.
after him. And at this point in the movie, we don't know what's happening. We don't know
it's
what's
plunging you right into it.
Yeah, we're just thrown right in there.
We don't know anybody's names. Barely anyone... I noted that nobody really says anything worthwhile for the first 10 to 15 minutes in this film.
It's a lot of action. We're just seeing a lot of scanning.
It's almost a silent film for a while. Seeing a lot of scanning, you're right. And these guys are chasing him. They have trench coats. He has a trench coat. Trench coats must have been very popular. Late 70s, early 80s, maybe?
It said mystery. It said...
Right? Mystery, intrigue, trench coats.
Yeah. It said, look out.
I agree.
Well, you know what? I mean, I lived through these years, and I guess I'll just, throw a little quickie in there. My history with Cronenberg is basically seeing these movies as kind of a late teenage stoner in drive-ins out in California. So that was where I first kind of... And so, let me tell you, just... to cater to that audience, you better hit them right between the eyes with some action and with some intrigue right off the bat, because otherwise we got other things to do.
True,
and that's very much this was Cronenberg. I mean, he definitely takes this to a little bit of a higher level. No pun intended or anything like that, because there is some intellectual, philosophical stuff going on, but he's kind of grabbing you by the throat and kind of shaking you around, which is exactly what us, kind of thrill seekers were kind of expecting.
You were
when
looking
we
for.
sort of got the posters and the reputation, the word of mouth about these kind of films. The dude's head explodes. Awesome. Let's go check it out. But you want something more than that, to kind of keep you sustained. Right.
You don't need anything more than that, though. That's the great thing.
Well,
the guy's head explodes.
that's the draw. Okay. They got that, and it looks pretty good.
Two.
Oh, yeah, we're in.
Isn't there two head explosions? I think two heads explode.
Well,
right?
there's one kind of smashed watermelon type of head explosion. But
Yeah.
Some other, there's rippings and burnings and bulgings and pulsations and all of that. But he doesn't play the one trick more than once, right?
That's my kind of Friday night right there.
I do take exception to the idea that there's action in this first scene. It is a very clumsy chase scene. His jump onto the
escalator, yeah.
It made
on
me
the
think
outside.
It made me think that there were no stuntmen involved, and they just basically said, "Hey, do you think you can make this jump? Is that something you can do?" And this guy,
how's your grip?
Right, exactly.
Right.
So we should talk about the fact that first build is Jennifer O'Neill, who isn't in this movie until the midway point. Almost.
Is that her star entrance or something?
Yeah,
I think she was a model or some kind of, something of that sort. So I guess, and she probably commanded the highest salary and probably said, these guys are nobodies, so give me top billing.
Exactly.
And they said, sure, let's get her in.
Well, she was the only one that really had a filmography before this.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And the main character, the actor's name is Stephen Lack. He pretty awful. He is really awful.
That's his stage name.
Wow. Yeah. And he is, and I had to do research. I had to look this up because his line delivery was so clunky, so monotone. Half of it, I think, was just ADR'd in at some point. His back was to the camera during most of his line delivery. He's an artist. Like, he's like a painter. And
the art is the only thing they say that frees them, if you remember. So it makes sense.
He only made about 2 or 3 other films after this one.
Okay.
This was it for him, and I could see it. But anyway, so these guys in trench coats chase him. They shoot him with a dart gun.
Yeah.
He, I guess, passes out and then is just dragged
on
away.
the escalator. He passes out on the escalator.
Yeah. He doesn't even make it all the way up before he's out. So
face plants right there.
Well, we don't know how long it's been since he's eaten his last corn dog, so he's probably he's got some low blood sugar.
Or what's exactly in that dart? But yeah, he's very easily contained for the first part of the movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I guess if you're going to get some rigorous, analysis going here, I mean, he becomes a lot more powerful without much explanation as the film goes on, maybe the Force is awakening or something. I'm not really sure.
I think you hit on the head. I think you could plug in the term without much explanation throughout this entire film.
Yeah.
And you kind of have the idea. But he really, he's chased down by 2 doughy guys in trench coats, and then I guess dragged away by an elderly man and strapped to a bed.
Yeah.
And it looks more like masking tape that's holding him down. I mean, he's not really locked up that hard, but he's brought into this kind of I don't know, kind of this urban loft, this kind of converted factory, and you start to get the idea that this guy's a mind reader, or at least he's very, his mind is like a sieve. If there's too many people thinking their thoughts around him, he just doesn't know how to block it out.
Right.
And he's tormented, which is why he's such a shiftless, kind of a loser, bum, street person, whatever you want to call him. And then there's this Dr. Ruth, interesting character. Patrick McGowan. Any of you fans of this? Was it The Stranger? No.
The Prisoner.
The Prisoner. Right. It's kind of interesting because it's almost like a role reversal in this case. Patrick McGowan is kind of the omniscient, villainous bad guy that we don't really know about. In The Prisoner, of course, he was the innocent, kind of caught up in something much bigger and more mysterious and frustrating than he'd ever known. So
exactly,
a fascinating piece of casting, and why he didn't
Role
get top
reversal.
billing, I don't really understand, because he was a name draw even back in the late 70s, 80s. We knew what The Prisoner was.
Again, who's Jennifer O'Neill? I don't know, but Patrick McGowan, at least he's an established actor. You would
Yeah, well, he had TV, and he'd been around for a while. And
Did he get the
was.
"and" in the credits? Did anybody notice? Because that's
Yeah,
a big
That's
deal.
when you're
special
really,
guest
yeah.
appearance.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was certainly much more than a cameo. I mean, he was a
Right.
pretty major
Oh,
player.
yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah. He's the father. Yeah. I don't want to give anything away.
Shame.
Well,
I
even
didn't
though
say
you
too
just-
much.
Destroyed the end. You know that people tune into this podcast to
Sorry.
watch the movie while they're listening to it. It is great that, yeah, his name is Dr. Ruth, which I don't know. Should I get as much of a kick out of Dr. Ruth as I do?
I think you should.
I don't think Dr. Ruth was quite the thing that she
Right.
became a couple years later. A fortuitous coincidence.
That's right.
He can't control the people's thoughts as they come into his mind, and he can't control his bodily movements. Like his body freaks out when he
Yeah, he's
hears
just
other
writhing
people's-
and
yeah,
squirming. It's kind of
it's
embarrassing.
very
Really painful.
uncomfortable.
This,
yeah,
everybody in this movie appears to be in great pain throughout, except for Patrick McGowan, who just is lazily delivering his lines as though he's drunk or just really tired. I do like it how he calls him a piece of human junk. I love it. I was like, how did you become a piece of human junk? I'm like, wow, that's really great. I hope that wasn't written down. I hope he came up with that on the fly. So he can't deal with these voices. He's freaking out, flailing all over this bed, strapped down with duct tape, as you said. Or not even duct tape, masking tape. And he is then injected with something that appears to
Ephemeral.
calm him down.
yes.
It's a magical drug that this bearded elderly man, who I guess dragged him out of a mall, gave him.
And me and my boys at the drive-in are like, hey, where can I get some of
That's
that?
right.
That's good. That is some good shit.
And you didn't see the rest of the movie because you were trying to score ephemeral.
But just before we get too lost in that, it's time for the head exploding scene. After
It
we've
is.
kind of
I
moved
did
into
not
the-
see this coming, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew. I did not see this.
Jamie,
So-
can I listen to your perspective? Because I want to hear
Yeah.
from someone who saw
Yeah.
this for the first time.
So
I'm sure
first-
Bring
I
us
was.
back, yeah.
I'm sure I was like 12 years old when I saw this for the first time on TV, and I shouldn't have. But your thoughts?
So before we see the explode, I drew the man's because he had the man's head that exploded had a very he had the glasses and the mustache, and I actually drew his little face on my notes. I was like, oh, there's
Yeah.
this man, and so he's gathered these people together.
Like, I got to remember this face.
Well, no,
There's
it was
something
just like-
important about this.
I guess so. Yeah, there was something. So yeah, I drew his face on my notes, which was trippy as it is. So he's gathered these 20 or so people to volunteer to become scanners, right?
And they're all
take
pretty
the medicine.
distinguished. These are leaders
Yeah.
of industry
Right.
and intellectuals and academics and researchers, the experts, the cream of the crop there.
Now, when he asks them to volunteer, they look at him like he's cray. Like nobody really volunteers.
They look at him as
right?
though this wasn't worked out beforehand. Like they didn't
Yeah.
know this was
We
going to
didn't know
happen.
this.
Yeah, we're here just to watch. and take
Which I
notes,
was
not-
really
not
confused
we're
by.
part of your
volunteering.
dog and pony show.
Because
We're not-
again, if
Right.
you don't know you're getting scanned, aren't you going to watch this happen to somebody and think that it's some stupid parlor trick? Like, are you going to buy
exactly.
into this?
A plant,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Well, and so indeed, someone does volunteer, and that someone has what's is like a really crazy staring contest, I guess, with them. I really didn't expect this to happen. I'm like, what is this guy gonna do? He wants to be, and all of a sudden, yeah, the shake of this eyeglass mustache man's.
The jaws
then-
are clenching. The
Yes,
veins are bulging.
yes. And I'm like, oh my God, either he's going to have exploding diarrhea in a minute or what is about to happen? And no. Oh no. It is.
The explosion was at the other end, you might say.
Yes. But it was again, I don't know that I didn't expect it, but I went, oh, that's where that went. Okay. And I was like, head, explode. And I just scribble, because I didn't realize that this is what we got to saddle up, guys, because heads are exploding. And this is what scanners can really do.
Did your pen explode at that particular moment? Is there a big blob of ink?
Just about. But yeah.
I love that, though. I love hearing it from your point of view because I don't know.
Caught off guard.
And how did you not know? Like, I remember watching Wayne's World. Do you remember watching Wayne's World? And there's a scene in the movie where, you know, Wayne gets up and leaves, so it's just the camera's just on Garth, and he's so uncomfortable, and he's just trembling. And one of the crew goes, "Hey guys, did you ever see that scene in Scanners where the dude's head explodes?" It's such an odd reference to this movie. But it
was legendary pretty soon after this movie hit. That was the one, because it was a very well done effect too.
It's an amazing effect, even by today's standards. I think
it looks like the guy's sitting there, and it's not just some cheap little prosthetic. Well, obviously it is,
right?
But it looks like, wow, his head just kind of shattered right in front of my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, of course, the audience is freaking out and ushered out of there. And then you've got
screams.
The screams, the disgust.
Yeah. So the guy who volunteered, his name is, his real name is Michael Ironside. Something Revok, right?
Revok, yeah.
Okay. Right. And my favorite part of this scene is after the guy's head explodes, Revok's reaction is kind of, he looks over and he almost looks like, oh, I didn't know that could possibly happen.
Well, then the authorities kind of grab him and say, you come with me. He's like, I didn't do nothing.
Right,
I'm just sitting there, you know.
Yeah. Wasn't me.
And they quickly inject him with this ephemeral.
Well, they try to. Did you catch what he did? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
right.
The doctor, shady-eyed doctor is what I like to call him.
Well, he's willing the doctor to give himself the injection.
That's right.
Yes,
but in sort of a concealed way so that the men who are holding him down don't understand that he's just kind of done this little trick, you know, because he's still at full power. He's just basically going along until he can destroy his kidnappers one by one in the rather sadistic, playful manner. Yeah, he's not. He could probably make all their heads explode too if he wanted to, but he'd rather just kind of toy with them and actually toy with us and drag the suspense out.
You got to get out of the building. He knows they'll get him out of the building. They'll get him in the car. But you're right.
Give me a ride. Get me out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me as close to my apartment as you can, and then I'll kill you. And that's what he does. He causes one car to crash and explode. Mm-hmm. And I love how the other guys get out of the car and
to check on the exploding car. Like it's on fire.
In flames and like, hey, he's still in here. We got to get him out. No, he's gone, man. Just
he has to keep on driving. If they do what's better for him.
That's right. And he does force one of the other guys to basically shoot the two remaining kidnappers and then to shoot himself. So then Revok's free. And still, at this point in the movie, we don't know what the hell's going on.
Right, there's still no obvious connection.
There's no
there's obviously there's these kind of mutant, mind freaks out there, and they're somehow connected, but we don't really know exactly how it all fits.
Right. But at least several times in this movie, we have scenes that are just a giant exposition dump. So we get one, and normally it's white, elderly men in a boardroom that do this. So that is what happens.
It's the masters of the universe in the old kind of corporate sense, the secret intelligentsia that kind of runs things. And of course, it continues to be a pretty popular, kind of conspiracy theory, kind of the boogie woogie spooky men out there who are kind of running the show, pulling the strings, and making us all believe that we have some kind of free choice in the matter when it's all pretty much scripted. We're all just pawns in their game. That's that kind of paranoid kind of woo-woo stuff that Cronenberg kind of feeds on and amplifies, and takes some of those kind of suppressed notions that we have and brings them right to the surface and say, what if it really is this way?
What if that is?
Yeah. I mean, it's all government paranoia and all that stuff, but
big business, secret research, military, mind control, all that stuff going on.
But Jamie, I do have a question for you. Do you what does this company do? Like what do these guys do? I was really trying to pay attention. Yes. Yeah. What does Consec do, and why do they need people who can apparently control others with their thoughts.
Well, I don't know that it's the doctor who works for the company. This is his pet project.
Dr. Ruth is there in this meeting.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
He's one of the select few. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and he's into these.
And they're kind of skeptical towards him. I mean, they feel
Yeah.
like, he's kind of the crackpot, but he's still a valuable talent. They just have to sort of reel him in and try to figure out how to capitalize on this eccentric genius that's in their midst.
Right. And he is hell bent on figuring out these telepathic curiosities, as I think they call them.
Right.
I like how they call. So in this meeting, there's a new director of security, right? That they bring in allegedly. Doesn't he call them all dolphins? He's like, we have to get rid of these telepathic curiosities. They're like dolphins and freaks. Because
I
you
think
get rid
it's
of the
because,
dolphins?
and David, again,
yeah.
I'm not trying to, have you show your age. And again,
that's fine.
once I say that sounds
I'm
terrible.
54. I'm okay with that. That's good. I've lived through some pretty awesome stuff, yeah.
Wasn't there a time in the 70s where the government was trying to train dolphins to attach bombs to ships?
Yeah, well, there's a movie called The Day of the Dolphin.
The Day of the Dolphin,
right.
right.
Was kind of based on that premise. But also there was another researcher by the name of John Lilly. If you hear the name Timothy Leary, Mr. Psychedelic Guru. Yeah. Well, John Lilly was kind of a later version of Leary, but much more scientific. He's the guy who, John Lilly, he did a lot of experimenting with dolphins and did a lot of hallucinogenic and other kind of psychoactive drugs, and was pretty convinced that dolphins had a consciousness and a language, and he was kind of into that kind of research.
Like
so
a freak.
It's all this kind of
it's very of the time too.
It's very of the time. It's very cutting edge. It's very kind of breaking open consciousness and exploring new frontiers. Altered States. That's the movie that I was trying to think about, the Ken Russell movie.
Yes.
And so that's also based on the work of John Lilly. So this kind of ties into that kind of whole counterculture, mind expansion, consciousness altering thing, and dolphins and this kind of alien intelligence that's swimming in the oceans around us is kind of tapping into that notion.
No, that makes total sense in the way that it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. 40 years on, it's like, what were we smoking anyway?
Okay, so anyway, in this meeting, nothing is really resolved. They talk about how they're trying to harness the power of these scanners for whatever reason, and there's an evil,
there's an underground group.
Yes,
sort of a subsect of all of this. Yeah.
Yes.
And
there's the good scanners and the bad scanners.
Yes.
Right. So at least we now know what we're dealing with. We're starting to understand because in this conversation, Ruth says that he has another scanner that's willing to help them, and we know that it's the homeless guy whose name I still don't think we know at this point in the movie. I mean, his name is Cameron Vale, but I don't know when that's revealed.
Right.
But so all that's discussed in this meeting. The guy who you said, Jamie, is the new head of security.
Yes.
He should just look at the camera and give us shifty eyes and stuff because clearly he's the villain. There's no question that this
traitor,
this dude's going to go
schemer.
right back, and he does. He goes right back to Revok and tells him, "Oh, they have the scanner, and they think he's so great, and all that stuff." And
infiltrator at the highest level.
Right.
Yes, he's fooled them all.
Right. And Jamie, for all the 80s movies that we've seen that had training montages, did you want a mental training montage here? Because I did. I wanted Ruth and Vale to do some mental training montage where there's music and he's getting better at, I guess, thinking about stuff.
Oh, when does he do? No, not yet. When does he test him with the yoga master?
Oh, this is basically that scene. There's a lot. Yeah, they're still in that warehouse, and Ruth has, I guess, been working with him to harness his scanning ability.
Yeah.
But we don't really see any of it. We don't know, again, how much time has passed.
And does he tell him about the medicine? No. He just knows.
Yeah, he does. He explains the ephemeral.
Tells him.
Ephemeral kind of blocks out the voices.
It's a suppressant, right.
exactly.
Yes. So, Jamie, tell us about the elderly yoga instructor or whoever this guy is that comes in.
Well, this is supposed to be a test, right? Like a kind of his.
Can you control it? Can you turn it
His
on
heartbeat,
and turn it
right.
off?
Yes,
Exactly.
yes. He's supposedly
channeling
this
that
little.
energy, right.
He's a yoga master, and he is adept in like controlling his own breath, controlling his own environment, not getting overstressed, and he's hooked up to all these machines, I guess, to monitor, heart rate and all that stuff. And
while he's wearing basically a tweed suit.
well, here's
like,
the
this
thing,
is
yeah.
the worst.
They should have put him in like some kind of a robe or like he's
a
a yogi
jumpsuit,
master.
at least,
Wears
yes.
the incense to keep him, kind of chilled out, but they don't. He looks a little stuffy for a yoga master.
Oh.
But regardless of that, the scanner goes in with him and almost gives the yogi a heart attack. It's intense times.
Pretty much off the charts.
Yeah. And they have to tell him like
EKGs just
it's
blipping up and down
blurping, like
crazy.
completely, like, and even I think the yoga guy is like,
Right?
begging.
His heart's about to explode.
Yes.
He's dying. This is an old man. I feel so bad for him.
And he's in constricting clothing. He shouldn't be in such constricting
Right.
clothing for a yoga.
Because Ruth goes to then shoot Vale up with this ephemeral, and Vale
To
just
make
like
him
grabs
stop.
his hand like, I was just
He's
joking
like, I
with you.
could do this. Yeah, don't worry.
I don't
I
have
got
to kill
this.
this man.
I totally
just
got
almost did it.
Right. And then he just stops. And it's like, whoa, I do have this kind of control. I can kind of grade my efforts, I guess.
I found my purpose.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, he does kind of have like a thirsty look about him too. Like, yeah, I did do that.
And I guess the whole time Ruth really is kind of indoctrinating Cameron into, he wants him to fight Revok. Like that's why he's there. That's why he's training him. That's his ultimate goal.
Destroy
so then
Revok,
he does things like to convince him. He's like, oh, he's your enemy and he's my enemy. He's our enemy. Mm-hmm. He's really trying to get him to hate this man whom
Well,
he's
it's a bit of a
never met.
brainwashing. He's like cultivating your powers, but in the meantime, I'm going to manipulate you so that your powers are used as an extension of my own ego, really. And that, it's not power for its own sake, but you're going to be made my tool. And here's, what I'm going to do. It's kind of a mad scientist type of thing.
Right.
Sure.
Not exactly Frankenstein, but almost along those lines of tampering with the forces of life and nature for some kind of selfish, egocentric ends, which ultimately turn out to be destructive and manipulative. So yeah, and then how about the little flashback video?
I was going to say, what about that
That's
video?
a pretty cool sequence there.
Yes. It's exactly a flashback of, I guess, when he was first taken in, interviewed for on a psyche.
Yeah, he was in a psychiatric institution.
Psychiatric,
He drilled a hole between his eyes.
That's
and
kind of
little...
creepy to look at for a
Yeah,
gal like
definitely.
me the whole time. I was like, were you a unicorn? What happened?
Right. Well, couldn't help but remind me of Charlie Manson.
Yeah,
with the little swastika tattoo
absolutely.
between his eyes, and the whole third eye thing, and this
Yeah.
kind of psychic energy being focused up there. So yeah, just kind of some weird mind games going on with that. But he's obviously operating at 2 or 3 levels above his inquisitors. People are asking him questions, trying to figure out, why are you, they're just seeing him as maybe self-injuring or some kind of weird suicidal tendency or something like that. And he's like, no, I just got to let the voices out. I got to drain out that pressure, and of course, within a minute, he picks up the glass and they're bailing out of there, and yeah, they've bitten off way more than they can.
I do enjoy his rationale though for drawing an eye on there. He's like, it's a door, but if I draw an eye, they're not going to know it's a door, so they're not going to try and get back in. And I guess if you're totally bonkers and hearing everybody's thoughts, that might make sense, or you're just out of any other idea, and that's all you got.
Yeah, and it was 1967, man. There was all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
That's right, yeah.
He just fits right into the scene, So, yeah, and so, but even into the modern times of this movie, Revok still has that kind of circular scar right
That's
there.
right.
It's kind of grown over, but it's a little remnant of his youthful experiments.
Yeah, that it's still there. So the other scanner that we're introduced to next is the artist scanner, right?
Yeah,
the one that decided to not, art gets him through this whole, he doesn't have to drill a hole in his head because he makes giant heads and sculpts
Right,
them.
and he makes these giant kind of embodiments of some of his own psychic torment. You
Right.
know, the head with all the wires going out and feeding into other people's minds, and it's pretty
Some trippy
warped,
art.
intense
Yeah,
stuff.
Right.
It's very
trippy stuff.
trippy.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. Like I was looking at that
it's
going,
really
this
cool,
is
yeah.
really great.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, how great could this possibly be that somebody just thought of it while they're making this movie? Like,
Well,
we
I
can
would
do this.
imagine Cronenberg probably found an
A real artist,
or
Probably.
commissioned
Oh, yeah.
some and said, "Yeah, we're going to put your work in here." And it does tie a little bit into the art as kind of a self-induced form of mental health therapy treatment and all that. And definitely, again, I was kind of in the punk rock scene back in these years, and this reminded me a lot of the kind of the street art and kind of some of the mashup and collages and stuff that we used
Sure.
to make.
But this is, this is more than street art because he's in a
it's
gallery and
Exactly.
he's got an agent.
Yeah.
Who then I guess Cameron scans to find out where this guy is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because the artist himself isn't really making
Yes.
it. He's kind of antisocial, kind
Yes.
of
As he should
off in his
be.
little, as he should be,
Yeah.
exactly.
I did like the dialogue here because again,
Oh yeah.
this actor he's awful, and all of his dialogue is so clunky and so monotone when he's talking.
Oh, his little maniacal.
when he's talking.
cackle.
Well, yeah, when he meets him, it's like this awful community theater where one guy is overacting
Yeah.
to a ridiculous length,
Right.
and the other guy just, oh man, his line delivery is just awful.
It is. It's
The,
very dry.
the main character is terrible. And David, I don't know, do you have
Yeah.
this movie? You have this movie,
Oh,
right?
of course, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a
right.
Criterion release,
Yeah.
so it's in my collection. Yeah, definitely.
Did you watch any of the extras here, David?
I have not had a
Okay.
chance to get into him. I
All right.
mean, I'm
Because
just
it is
focusing on the movie, yeah.
amazing to watch the interviews.
Oh.
There's an interview with Michael Ironside, who's Revok.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And so he was talking about how Vale, or whatever the guy's name is, Stephen Lack, he wasn't a classically trained actor. And so he said he was so nervous. He was so nervous on set, and he would ask him, he'd be like, do you have all your lines memorized? And Ironside would go, yeah. And he
That's
would
what
go,
we do.
Yeah, and he
Yeah,
would
yeah,
say,
part of your
"Do you-
job.
yeah, and at one point he was like, well, "Do you have mine memorized too?" He's like, "Yeah, I have yours memorized." And he even said, he's like, and one day he asked me, he's like, "Listen, if I need help, can you?" And Michael Ironside basically said, "Listen, I felt bad for the guy. He's not a trained actor. Like I would feed him lines," and he basically said he wasn't able to deliver the lines 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a row.
Same
Like
way,
he
yeah.
couldn't, with the different shots, with the different cuts. Like he wasn't
He was
able to do
overwhelmed.
it. So,
He was
yeah,
overwhelmed.
yeah.
So
And
that
he-
It's like a
forehead
scanner.
sweating and pulsing
Yeah,
veins,
exactly.
that was real, right? No makeup, no special
No
effects there.
prosthetics
Exactly how he was
necessary
feeling.
for
He was
that.
like, line.
yeah, and I mean, while I watched this movie, I was like, this guy is awful, and then I kind of felt bad for him after I watched that interview. Like he just didn't know what he was getting into.
Was there any explanation of how he landed this role?
Yeah.
Was he just a buddy of Cronenberg's?
No,
or-
Cronenberg saw him in like a really small Canadian film, and and he even said there's an interview with Lack too.
Yeah.
He even said, "I don't know how I got this role." He said he saw me in this movie. He cast me. He said he didn't even have to audition or anything like that. So
Wow.
Oh, I do wonder if it was just the looks. I mean,
was
the
gonna
guy,
say.
Right.
his eyes really are just slightly askew,
Exactly.
and he give that sense of somebody who's just a little bit
right.
off
And
kilter.
Even
Right.
at the end, even his poor line delivery, I was like, well, maybe that's part of being a scanner. You can't really emotionally connect to what you express.
Yeah.
Well, hey.
because,
Exactly.
you know,
Social awkwardness.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. So he does. He seeks out this artist to, I guess, find out where Revok is. Right? Is that the whole point of this? I wasn't sure if it
Yeah,
was too
yeah. The
Yeah.
artist is
him.
basically they're just trying to lead a trail to Revok. That's basically what Dr. Ruth is using Cameron for is to infiltrate this society of scanners. It's just one stage to the next, and so
Okay.
from the artist and of course the assassins are also following along because of Dr. Snidely, the corporate, henchman there, who's
Dr.
Oh, that was his
I
name,
was-
Dr.
yeah,
Snidely?
what? No. I'm just
Dr. Whiplash is his name.
But yeah, he's the one who's like spying, through some of the Consex technology to
Right.
figure out what Dr. Ruth is doing with his little protege. So that's where the assassins just kind of keep following
And
following
I wasn't
along.
sure because there are a few scenes with these assassins. Are these assassins
Scanner?
paid assassins, or are these assassins scanned
I think they're
into
weaker scanners.
doing
And
this?
controlled assassins,
Yeah,
basically.
right,
Yeah,
okay.
right. I think it's more. I don't think it's just their job, because if they knew what they were doing, they knew that they were basically walking into a death trap themselves. You know, they are basically robots, you know, or zombies, if you will, that are marching to their doom, but in the meanwhile they're kind of doing Revok and this other guy's work of taking out some of the other scanners.
Because
so
I
that
kind of thought that they were being controlled in the later scene where there's like hippie scanners all sitting around, scanning each other. But anyway, they're
the
at this
transcendental meditation circle there. Yes,
they're at this artist's barn, and they blow this dude away, and they have no problem doing it. Like with they're going up against two scanners, and they have no problem.
Right.
But it seems
But the artist
is
is really taken off guard.
Yes,
That's right.
Yes,
Yes.
that's what I
And
was
so.
gonna say. It seems like if the scanners don't know you're coming, they can't kind of activate their scanning device.
Yeah.
Quick enough.
He's focused in dialogue with this
Yes.
guy who's gotten into his lair.
They're sitting in a giant head, just talking about
yeah,
nonsense.
yeah. Well, and our good guy stays hidden in there. Cameron is hiding in the giant head
Right.
while the shooters are all about, which is interesting in and of itself that he's just hiding in a giant head.
And that's where Cameron's first kind of full flourish of power comes in, because
Yes.
he basically dispatches these guys.
Well, he
you know,
takes
pretty
on like
quickly.
four assailants, right? Aren't there
Well,
four of them
and he's
now?
like flicking his head at him. He's like not just projecting the thoughts. He's
Yeah,
like
yeah. He's
putting
like
some
bing,
curveball
yeah,
on it or something.
Exactly. And isn't there another head explosion? Doesn't one of
No,
the
there's
shooters
no
have
head
a-
explosion.
No.
He doesn't
No?
kill anybody here. They just kind of fly against walls and into big plaster pieces of art and stuff like
Kind of
that.
knocks him out a little bit.
Yeah.
and
Right,
then
yes.
makes his
But you're
Jumbles
right
around.
in that it is really great because it's almost like they positioned the camera low and said, all right, now just swing your head violently toward the camera this way. We'll set up over here, do the same thing over there.
and he got this pretty weird, eerie, high-pitched electronic soundtrack to kind of give
Oh,
you that
yes.
virtual thing going on there. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, mind's melting.
But before the artist dies, he gargles and gurgles and gives him information, which I had to rewatch with the
And I think it was
captions on.
scanned. He's not actually
Right.
speaking. I think this
No,
is
no.
his dying thoughts that are being picked up, and that's where he gets the name of Obrist, right?
Yeah, Kim Obrist, and I had to rewind it. I had to put on the captions. I couldn't understand any of
It's
this.
it's pretty warped, pretty
Yes.
garbled.
But she was at his gallery, which I thought
Right.
was really strange too.
Yeah, when he sent the agent off with the nosebleed and got the
Right.
information.
He makes
Yeah,
eye contact with her. He glances
Yes.
at
Yeah,
her.
well,
right?
and
Yeah.
she's the one who kind of gave him a nosebleed. Kim
Oh, right.
showed
Yes.
because he was like kind of flaunting his stuff, and then all of a sudden this woman is checking him out, giving him the stink eye there, and all of a sudden he's got a little trickle of blood out his nose. Like, whoa, I've just met my match here.
Right.
I think I'll call it a night. Get out of this little cocktail
Yeah.
party.
See, yeah.
So he then tracks down Kim Obrist, who is top billed in this movie, and again, we're halfway through the film, and she's
Yes.
just shown up at a scanner commune. Should we call
Yeah,
it
I
that?
think
Is that
so.
fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
a little meditation circle. They're looking to have their little scanner utopia. You know, kinda
It seems
get
very
groovy and
sexual.
get along. Yeah,
Yep.
it's very, very psychosexual. I guess
Yeah,
you could say.
I loved it. I loved the camera work, how it spins
Yeah.
around, and you just hear their voice. Oh, we're scanning each other. We're
Yeah.
scanning each other. And then
Love,
say a
peace, and
bunch of-
scan.
That's right.
Love,
That's
peace, and
right,
scan.
yeah.
That's what it's all
We can
about.
keep our clothes on. And
Yeah,
still get it on.
exactly.
Oh man.
Oh, that party didn't end very nicely.
No,
you know.
No more of those.
They were so
shooters.
into it, they didn't quite realize that there were some peepers going on.
Yeah.
coming in
Yeah.
their scene, right?
Yeah, for scanners, you'd figure they'd have more of a lookout than one dude who gets
Yeah.
thrown down a staircase.
Yeah, he's pretty easily dispatched. Probably
Yes.
the weakest scanner of them all, standing guard.
Right, and they're the same guys again. These same guys
Yeah.
with shotguns wander in, and they just start blowing them away because they're not fighting back because they're all in this weird.
They're in their own little scanner
Scanner
trance.
trance,
Yeah,
yeah.
It takes them a while. I think they must kill 2 or 3 of them.
I think they killed pretty much all of them except for except for Kim. And Cameron. And Kim, of course, shows her power by basically burning up the assassins. She kicks them all to the wall mentally, and they catch on fire. And
you can do anything during scanning, right? Like at this point, we've seen a guy's head explode, people thrown across the room,
into
and
flames.
Just burst into flames.
It's an intense power. I mean, it is intense.
I love it.
Well, this is what, but it's also, it is a hard thing because Kim at one point, because she gets broken up now, these are her buddies, her commune, her
sure,
yeah,
and so she at one point looks over and she says, "Now I know what it feels like to die," because she felt the death of her. Yeah. So it's all fun and games till someone dies.
Till someone dies.
Really?
That's right. Yeah. Truer words have never been spoken.
Ain't that the truth?
I love how they escape in a school van.
Yeah,
did you guys notice?
A school bus van.
Yeah. I don't know how they got their hands on that, but that appears to be their vehicle of choice. And they run into a record store, just crash right through the front.
Yeah, that was a complete nostalgia trip for me. I mean, it didn't really stand out the first times I watched it or anything, but nowadays it's like, oh man, look at all that vinyl.
Oh yeah,
Frank Zappa, a whole like stack of Frank Zappa, "Shake Your Booty," and then Herman Brood and his Wild Romance. I mean, these little one-hit or no-hit wonders.
Right,
I actually remember some of those same posters and some of that same merchandising. It was probably just a pretty typical record store of its day.
Yeah.
They got permission to trash, I don't know, maybe there was a little bit of product placement going on there, but nothing real obvious. But I definitely freeze framed a few of those spots just to look at some of the albums and posters on the wall.
Nice.
It's like, I haven't
more and more,
seen that
I'm glad we made
time.
you watch this movie.
I'm
really happy about
fantastic.
this.
A lot of fun.
So they are chased in the back of this record store because these guys are not going to stop. They're going to kill them. Mm-hmm. They're chased down by one guy, though. I guess the one that wasn't on fire.
Yeah, that's what, there is a survivor of the assassins there.
Yeah, and Cameron Vale uses his scanning to, I guess, have this guy give them more information about where Revok is, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when he takes out the little vial of
yeah, that's right. Yeah, because he's basically at the draw, and he's got a rifle, and he could just shoot, but he's basically overpowered, and so he says he's going to give us something, and he pulls that little glass vial with the little logo there.
Yes,
the biocarbon logo, right? That little biocarbon, right?
Yes. The logo on the vial dissolves into a logo on a big corporate sign, and it has the best fake company name ever, Biocarbon Amalgamate. It's such a stupid fake name.
But it's so cool, and I mean, even going back to that Consec building too, consolidated security. I mean, it's a skyscraper all by itself
in the middle of
nothing.
This big lawn. It's not even like concrete. It's just this big grass patch. It's like, that building had to have been built. I mean, Cronenberg certainly didn't have the budget to put up his own skyscraper just for a couple of shots. So, what is this building? I mean, why build so high up when you've got all this horizontal space you could fill?
They fly in a helicopter at one point, and I looked at the parking lot, and I'm like, it must be Sunday. There's like 2 cars in this huge
not a work day.
Lot. Right.
Maybe this is downtown in northern Canada or something. I don't know.
Well, it's certainly somewhere in Canada. I don't think there's any question about that.
Now we're in it, and it's basically a bunch of people in hazmat suits in golf carts dealing with dry ice is what you see, right?
Pretty much.
They're doing something
behind
important,
the scenes at the disco, or something like that.
They're doing something important though, and Cameron gets in. I don't know how, because that's not explained.
He basically scans. It's a very effortless kind of deception. He just sort of slides in and nobody notices.
Right.
Which, with all this high tech and security and even scanners, you'd think there'd be a little bit of a trick.
Someone would be a little aware, but no.
They probably just had to keep the plot moving. So
right.
Let's just
I think that's
Right?
They're like, all right, now he's in it, okay, and now we find out, dun dun dun, it's even deeper. So this company is making this medicine, and the company is run by the bad guy Scanner.
Was that Pee Wee Herman being upset about this?
Okay, so this, for me, again, first-time watcher, this discovery was much like the head exploding. I was like, are you serious? He's in charge of this company? Bum-bum-bum. Like, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? How are we going to get the power away from this scam?
Well, the way they're going to get the power away from him is by an awkward phone conversation between our main character and Dr. Ruth.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And Dr. Ruth is sitting in this parlor with all these trophies and padded leather chairs and
I love it.
Old men playing chess and sipping brandy from fine snifters.
Well, I love it. He gets the call and he's like, it's obviously an important call. He's like, let me call you back. I'm tied up right now.
Give me 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
This.
Hang on here, panties.
All the stuff that we don't see in this movie, I love how he literally says, Dr. Ruth, this is Cameron Vale. And this is not an exaggeration, folks. This is how this actually
how
goes
the delivery
down.
is, yeah.
And
totally.
he literally says, Can you call me back in 10 minutes? And his response is, thank you, Dr. Ruth. I'm like, this is the worst dialogue. And his plan is to, I guess, say that this woman, this Kim woman, is a, what is she? What does he say? She's like a double agent, or she's working for Revok, and he's going to bring her to Consec because she's going to give them all the information. Am I just making this up? Is this not what happened at this point in the movie?
I wasn't, even after watching it a few times, I'm not sure I ever really connected the dots of logic in all of this. So I'll either take your word for it, or I'll wait the angry emails from the scanner's purists who have this all figured out.
No, I do. I think she's got some information that he's like, and she's going to really tell you what the whole story is, kind of thing. Because now they know that he's in charge of this other this company, and she's privy to other information too. So, yeah. He kind of.
But again, he knows that. Like, why does he have to bring her along? He broke into that company
because she's another scanner, though, that could potentially.
So they're just building their scanner army. Their good scanner army.
Exactly. Okay.
Well, he's got an ally. He knows he's up against a pretty badass scanner enemy, so he's got to get some reinforcements.
This is all fair.
Yeah. Is this when he tries to log on? Is this when he does try to log on to the computer? And I like this because for the first time where he's like, request access.
Well,
like there's no passwords maybe
and says,
that you
sorry, you can't get onto the program here.
Yeah.
You've got to go to the main headquarters. It kind of gives you a nice clue. If you want to break into our system, here's what you got.
Yeah, exactly. Try again, buddy. Maybe try this way. Right, exactly.
But this is when he does take Cameron and Kim are two good scanners. They go to Consec, where they are immediately shot up with ephemeral, quote unquote, and then are separated because the bad guy, the secret good bad guy, what's his name? Does anybody know what his name is? The old bad guy.
I don't know. The new.
I have it at the top here. Keller.
Is that Keller? Yeah,
okay.
Keller. Okay. Right.
So Keller wants to separate them, and so he takes Kim into a private room to interrogate her, while Dr. Ruth gets to talk to his protege, I guess.
Yeah, and really, this section of the movie is just one little ominous scene after another. The helicopter landing with the guys in the shotguns, the skyscraper, the needles, kind of spritzing out the dope, the long fluorescent lit corridors and the ominous rooms and the security guards standing at there. It's just all this kind of creepy, paranoia-inducing stuff going on, and that's even more than plot machinations or dialogue. It's just kind of this, this mood that's kind of crashing down of like, the man's got you by the short and curlies, and you are not going to get away.
Well, speaking of creepy, Keller takes Kim into a room, and immediately, like, the first things he says is, "Oh, this is a pleasant surprise. Yeah. You're very attractive." This is really creepy, lady.
Can you read my mind, darling?
Yes. But again, we are privy to information. Ruth says that they have not been shot up with ephemeral, so they still have their power.
Right.
Yeah.
So if anything bad happens, they're going to be
They're
fine.
okay, right?
Yes.
They can handle it, right? She gets slapped around a bit, doesn't he? Slap
She
her
hits
around
her
a bit.
so hard.
That's
And
what.
that comes out of nowhere.
But that's what makes her finally scan him, right? Doesn't she scan him, right?
She scans him and basically just kind of throws him in a corner and then
Yes,
walks
and
out
then
of the room.
escapes essentially, right?
Yes.
And then we have the doctor he gets killed, doesn't he, Dr.
Well,
Ruth?
yeah, I was a little confused because now this turns from a movie where it's Revok against Cameron into a movie where it's Cameron against the computer.
Oh.
Because Ruth starts to say things like, you have to get this computer, you have to get it online,
yeah.
you can get in, you're a scanner, it has a nervous system.
Right.
Right. It's kind of taken this whole electronic, mind to mind. Now let's do the human mind to the artificial mind, or the silicon based mind. And so again, it's another one of these kind of transhumanist, futuristic, kind of stretching the boundaries of what is consciousness and what is intelligence and sentience and all of that. So yeah, Cronenberg's just kind of playing with these trippy ideas, and it's pretty cool. It's not really rigorously thought out, but good enough.
Right.
I can go with it. Yeah, for sure.
There's a little bit of early internet stuff too.
Oh
because
yeah,
they're
definitely
tapped
a
into
network.
the phone
And
system.
I was just going to
you got
say
this-
they use the phone lines, right, to tap in.
And this the computer isn't just one unit; it's this whole network of machines that are lined up in this laboratory. And you're right; it's all happening over the phone. And so yeah, well, and that's kind of back to the old days of Captain Crunch and fiber optic. The guys who blew the whistles into the phone lines and hacked into the system, and that was all just starting to happen. We were kind of hearing some of these legends and stories, and kind of playing with those ideas as well.
Well, Cronenberg uses it quite well because once Kim and Cameron escape, they go to the gas station, a payphone,
Of course.
which is where he's going to make all this go down.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're right, Jamie. In the meantime, Keller just shoots Dr. Ruth in the head. Like, Dr. Ruth voluntarily walks into this room and sits in a chair, kind of knowing that he's going to get killed. Like, it's very upsetting. He could have, I think, easily walked out.
Nah, he mumbles
with the
something.
two of
It's like
them.
he knows that he has to go. He's like, he knows he created these monsters, and this has got to be it. Because he mumbles something about the medication or something before he shot. And then he's done. And then this is intense too when he does scan the computer and he's over the phone and then back at the home base, I guess. Is it Keller? Is that he is like, well, we're just gonna. What is he gonna do? He's gonna override the computer, right? He's gonna make the computer basically.
He's going to shut everything down.
exactly.
He's going to delete and destroy everything on the computer, which I thought was what Cameron was trying to do.
But he's going to do it first. That way, it kind of makes right.
Well, yeah. Well, I think Cameron was, in a sense, almost trying to download all the information that the computer held.
Okay.
And Revok and his, kind of his tech support crew there, basically saying, "Well, we can't let him do that, so we're going to shut the system down." His Geek Squad, right?
Oh, no.
And maybe by shutting down the computer while he's
it would kill him
psychically
right?
logged in. Yeah, it would just kind of blow up on him there. Right? So, but there's also So I think that's basically one of the big sort of technological showdown scenes of this last
I do
section.
like that part of the Geek Squad is that one guy that wears the shades the whole time, the sunglasses, and he's like, it's not going to be that bad when it goes down. It's really going to be fine. And he's wearing the sunglasses like he's super cool, and then he explodes, like he gets a blast, and like
everyone explodes.
But he's like, nah, it's all good. It's all good. And you're like, what? Wait,
Well,
first
it'll
of all,
be over quickly. Let's just put it that way.
But he is able to make this entire computer system and the machines themselves blow up from the gas station but also causes the gas station to explode.
Yeah.
Because the phone lines are destroyed.
Yes.
Well, the phone is melting in his hands, right? The plastic is kind of liquefying there. It's a pretty crazy scene.
Yeah.
There was also that other little kind of mind trick thing going on. Remember when Kim and Cameron were surrounded by these policemen or they're kind of security guys, and she kind of projects into the one cop's mind the image of his mother.
Oh, that's right. That's
it's
right.
Just that little. All of a sudden,
yeah.
You know, Kim is no longer there. It's a nice, sweet little gray-haired old lady who's giving
right.
him a little motherly shaming look, and the guy bursts into tears and he's sorry for disappointing. It's like, I mean, just a little one-off gesture, but there's just one more little.
I was going to say, for all the head exploding, and we're going to talk about veins. Like, that was oddly one of the most disturbing things, was to realize
you disappointed your mom.
These scanners can do that to you. That's highly disturbing.
Yeah, now that's really a dirty.
Right.
That's
just
a low blow.
Low blow. Yeah, take it easy. It's the mama now. Take it easy.
So then we have a scene which I totally didn't understand. I was really confused at this point in the movie because after destroying the computer system, and Keller dies in the explosion. Right. It shows him dead underneath a door. Cameron and Kim take a cab, and I was like, why are they taking a cab? But their car blew up in the gas station explosion.
Right.
But they go to basically a country doctor. Like, I was so confused. I was like, why are they at a doctor's office in the middle of the suburbs?
There's probably a line of exposition that got them there
I'm
somewhere
sure.
or another. Yeah. But that's basically where the big reveal happens. So I guess anybody who's hung in there long enough to track with us recognizes that, okay, we're at the point where there's going to be some explanation given as to why, why these people are the way they are,
right?
And how are Revok and Cameron connected in the first place. And that's where we get into this kind of, another kind of blow for the cause of paranoia. It's like, medically prescribed, commercially over-the-counter, analgesics were sold back in the post-war years, the baby boom years, and induced these kind of bizarro birth defects. And, of course, thalidomide and any number of other things that used to be considered safe wonder drugs, even things like DDT. People of this generation were definitely coming to grips with the fact that a lot of the stuff that was advertised and government sanctioned and promoted turned out to be pretty awful, deadly poisons that we were just having to deal with the effects of. And so that's kind of the big twist.
Yeah, she gets scanned by a baby, by an unborn child.
Yes.
And that's the discovery of, like, they are scanning, like, fetuses. Fetuses are becoming scanners. And this is
that they're breeding children for this purpose, who will be even more wicked and
more powerful,
than the next generation.
Yeah, and they're giving this stuff to doctors. I guess just local doctors or random doctors, or I guess they found this guy through the computer system that he scanned.
Oh, right, he's on the list.
And I guess he was just the closest doctor to Consec. But and then she gets scanned by an unborn baby. And they walk outside, and Revok's standing behind a tree. Like, he's just behind a tree with a dart gun, and then, shoots Cameron with a dart gun.
That's right. Yeah. Look, we've got 10 more minutes left of this footage. Let's get that on.
Yes, exactly. Yes. There is a great, I don't know if you guys noticed, but when he pulls out the gun, there is the sound of the gun firing, but clearly nothing is coming out of that gun.
Awesome.
It's a bad, just dumped in sound effect.
Yeah.
So now is when we get, again, a lot of the exposition that you talked about, David. So a lot, though, is revealed because Cameron wakes up in a room. He and Revok are together. Revok basically reveals all this stuff. They're brothers.
Join me. We can rule the world.
They can bring the world of normals to their knees. Bring the world of normals to their knees. Oh.
And their father was the doctor.
The Dr. Ruth.
Yeah.
Dr. Ruth was their daddy. And who's the mother? Who is the mother?
Who is their mother? That's what I want to know.
That's true. she's been disposed of. Perhaps there's a prequel or
Like,
something.
You know what?
Yeah.
There is a Scanners 2 and 3.
Oh,
I
there's
think
a
we should
series,
watch.
and there's
There
a
might be
Scanner
4,
Cop.
actually.
I think there were 5 altogether. There's one called Scanner Cops, and then Scanner Cops 2. But Cronenberg had nothing to do with any of them. So
Okay.
it did become a franchise. of
Scanner
sorts.
Cops. That sounds like the worst thing ever, or the best thing ever.
Truly. What can we do to make this even more scary?
Right.
All right, so
The
Jamie,
power
do you
to the
want to take
ponies.
us? Do you want to take us through the final battle?
Oh
here
my
and
gosh,
just
this
describe
epic
in
battle.
horrific detail.
It is a battle to the Scanner to great, right?
Yeah,
at one point, Cameron's got his hands alongside his head, and it almost looks like he's just shaking air. Like it's like you said, as a director, must have just been like, okay, you're just fed up. You just want to, you got it, because that's what you get. And
Yeah,
then,
we're going to be downing like 10 espressos right before we shoot
yes,
this scene.
yes, exactly. And let's just balls to the wall, guys. Let's just and they do. It's just a back and forth, and we watch their veins slowly enlarge and explode. And
Right? They never they never lay hands on each other.
no,
It's
it's
just
all
they're just
done
standing
through
there,
the
just
skin. It's all done. It's
purely mental. Right?
It's all done through the skin. It's so intense.
I was thinking early on though how Cameron hit him in the head with like a paperweight. I immediately thought I was like, "Wait, you're a Scanner. What are you doing, man? You don't fight like this." But that was the only time. You're right that they ever touched each other or made any sort of contact.
I mean, it gets so intense that his heart sizzles out of his chest.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy. Like, and you get to watch it all kind of happen, like slowly. But
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that made this movie very distinctive. It was very an unblinking. Like, we're going to give you all this physical nastiness, and we're not going to cut the camera.
And we're not going to let you guess at what happens next.
Right,
it's like,
right,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
You're going to you're sort of stuck there watching it, and again, believe me, the horror movie genre has gone into all sorts of different explicit directions, but this was truly mind-blowing stuff.
I mean, it's amazing when you think about the practical effects that were used in this film. That nobody would do this. You know, it would. And I don't know, David or Jamie, do you watch the TV show Fargo? Do you watch that at all?
I saw the Coen Brothers movie, but I haven't watched the TV show.
It's a great TV show.
I've heard,
but it bothers me to no end because the blood is always CGI. People are always getting shot in the head. The blood is clearly CGI, and it looks so bad. And for as bad as some of this stuff looked, it was so refreshing, and it was just like, wow, they must have put like these weird like pouches and
then
filled
inflated
them
them
to look
somehow,
like
or
liquid.
injected
Yeah.
liquid. Yeah, right.
Or like ballooned him out somehow. Yeah.
Right, and there's, even if you recognize, this is artifice, or you've watched it enough times to sort of wear the shock value down, it's like they're still making something happen. It's it's just not a gloss of an image that they're putting on. And that there's something much more visceral to a scene when you feel like the people in that room were getting sprayed.
You see every minute, it's pretty epic. It is.
And also, if it doesn't work, just how on the edge of their seats this crew must have been like, this better work. Because if it doesn't, hours and hours are just lost.
If we clean everything up and start all over again.
We can't digitally fix this or anything like that.
Right.
At one, there's some stuff that isn't that. Like, Cameron's eyes pop out of his head. At one point, they just explode.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest effect. And, but for
still,
all
of that happens. It's not just like...
But they're going for it.
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
They've won. We've won. The Scanners won.
Well, how did they?
The good
Scanners they're both
won.
Scanners. Come on.
Well,
they did win. The good Scanners win because Kim busts in after this big epic showdown, where we basically see that Revok is winning.
Well, you see, Cameron's body is getting trashed.
He's on fire and doesn't have a heart anymore or eyes.
Yeah, he's going to have a hard time coming back from this one.
Right. But it appears that he was able to, again, Scanners can do whatever we want them to do at any time.
Right.
He was able to switch bodies.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically
with Revok.
Inhabited. Right.
He mind swapped. He mind swapped.
So Revok was the one on fire at the end and the charred body on the ground.
Or at least Revok's mind has been overpowered and
Right.
subdued.
Yes.
So that maybe it's still somewhere in Revik's body, but it's now Cameron who's operating Revik's.
But the scar's no longer
Corpses.
on Revik's head, right?
Oh,
the scar's
okay.
gone.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a good catch. I didn't notice that till the second time I watched it. And his eye color is different too.
That's right. Yeah,
yeah.
he's got those
Yeah.
green eyes. Right.
Yes.
Right.
And again, I think maybe that's the only reason Lack got the job, because of those eyes.
Those
Yeah.
eyes. Ooh, them
Cronenberg was
eyes.
like, listen, we've seen greater actors,
Yeah.
but I know the ending and we got the contacts.
He was
So,
like, and all you got to do is scan. All you got to do is scan people. So you don't even
just-
have to have that good.
can
at
you
it.
just twitch? Can
Yeah.
you twitch?
Yeah.
Because if you can, you got the part.
How's your seizures?
Twitch and
Yeah.
just look freaked out.
Yeah.
a lot.
We'll record all your dialogue in a few months. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's okay. I got a sound booth. Everything's
It's all
great.
groovy, right?
But anyway, that is the end of this movie. That's the end of Scanners. Good scanners win, bad scanners lose.
True.
I don't know how there's more movies since it's all wrapped
Well,
up, but
I think you've got this ultra scanner here who's perhaps, I mean, I could spin some plots out where maybe the evil Revik part starts to kind of come out of dormancy.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you've got this kind of psychic civil war happening within the same body. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Maybe
Right.
he's using his powers for good, but all of a sudden it gets
Well, what
twisted
tempts
and he's
him to
using
be
them for
more
evil. So-
bad? Like maybe there's something out there
Yeah.
that can
Yeah.
kind of tempt the negativity and tempt the power. And
what
that
about
kind of
that
thing?
scanner fetus? What happened to that little
Right,
child? You know?
yeah. What is that out to become? True.
now, David, I've never seen any more Scanner movies, but I would be willing to bet that your plot is better than whatever
And
those
what yours are.
I sketched it about 3 minutes off the top of my
cuff,
head,
right,
for sure.
right. There you have.
Maybe by not overthinking it too much, it stays a little more fresh and vital, right?
So the way we end this is, and this, it has nothing to do with the great Scanner aficionados out there who are going to correct all the mistakes we've made. But, David, would you recommend that people see this movie? No one's ever seen Scanners.
Oh, okay.
Should they see it? And if so, why? And if not, you don't need to say anymore. But go
Well,
ahead.
I think I mean, for what it is, it's a time capsule of a certain place and time, in terms of the development of horror cinema and the career of David Cronenberg, who I think is a pretty serious, significant director. We've I think touched on a lot of the the more interesting speculations and philosophical aspects of consciousness and just how people operate, the conspiracy theories, the powers of corporations and governments and secrets and lies and all of that. So these are all themes that I think continue to apply and speak to us in our own times, and and these ideas have been amplified and built on. So I think there's some substance and depth to this movie.
Okay.
It's also just kind of as we've said, there are some pretty genuine shocks and surprises. If you're into that kind of thing, and you don't really know a lot going in, obviously, if you listen to this podcast, you've heard about a lot of it. But as far as obviously, some people are going to be grossed out. Not everybody's going to be into this kind of low budget horror. But I think if you want to talk about, is it quote unquote Criterion worthy? For sure. I mean, Cronenberg has a pretty distinguished career. He broke new ground. These movies have a pretty significant following, and you can watch them multiple times and still pick up new stuff. So yeah, I think that, and then Criterion put a very nice package together. I haven't watched the supplements on this one, but going back to Videodrome, one of their older Cronenberg releases, that disc is stacked, and that's all kinds of interesting stuff going on. So I imagine that the special features here are of a pretty similar quality. So there's cinema history, there's ideas, there's entertainment value. There isn't necessarily great acting. So
No.
if you're looking for the art of drama and performance, well, okay,
Right.
4 out of 5 ain't bad. Even the soundtrack is kind of cool, kind of that kind of late 70s, early 80s synthy techno type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a nice package.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Jamie, what do you think?
Well, it is. It was a wild ride for me, having never seen it, having just. It was not my type of movie, I will say.
Right.
But I do have I mean, I don't know if we're going to do recommendations. Are we doing recommendations?
Oh, we will. We will.
Okay.
Certainly.
Okay. So I definitely respect it, and I definitely would say, depending on your movie types or preferences, I would recommend it. But for myself, no, I wouldn't want to watch it again.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, when we decided to do this movie, I was like, "Oh, this is like RoboCop all over again. Like this is something Jamie is not going to dig."
But no, I mean, in watching it, like I did, I definitely and like you're saying, David, I did get a lot of the different the messages and what's underlying, but it just not my jam for a movie. And
no, and that's very fair. I think I'd come in somewhere in between you guys.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't think it's a big recommend for me, only because if you're a big Cronenberg fan, first of all, you've probably seen it. But
Right.
if you are, yes, you should see it.
right.
But I really point to his other movies. And David, like you had said, I mean, this is bookended by Videodrome and The Brood, which I think both are so far above this film. It's astounding. And I'm not saying that he took a step back, because I think this leads him to where he was going to go.
Right.
But I just think plot-wise, I think acting-wise, I just think it's less interesting than a lot of other work that he's done. And I can appreciate parts of this movie, certainly. I mean, the effects are amazing at times. For their time, it's incredible. And I would say that Michael Ironside as Revok is phenomenal. Like, anytime he was on screen, I was like, he's so great in this film. But I just don't think it's up to snuff for me.
Yeah, well, and like I said at the beginning, this isn't the kind of film, like, when I get around to blogging about this type of thing, I'm going to give it a quickie review.
Sure.
For my taste, the Ingmar Bergmans, the Kurosawas, the classic art house stuff, that's really what got me into the Criterion Collection, and I respect Criterion's eclecticism and their diversity. They do, like, kind of screwball comedies from the 1930s, experimental stuff that's completely nonlinear, plotless, but fascinating visuals.
Right.
They do, schlocky horror stuff, and they do modern art house stuff. So, they've basically got representation across all genres, eras, a lot of different nations, certainly not all nations, but this has its place. But this isn't my total cup of tea. Even some of my Criterion Cast friends are a lot more into the horror stuff than I am.
Well, and I think I think maybe I agree with Jamie there in that I can see the value in a film like this.
Right.
It's just nothing that I would probably pick up for another 10 years,
Well,
if that,
yeah.
and check it out. So
if it didn't have the big C on it, I probably wouldn't have it in my collection either. So there's all that, But I do have fond memories of it from the past. But just as I saw it back in the drive-in 1982, doesn't mean I have to have it on my shelf in 2016.
and I will say, and I know that this isn't a Criterion podcast, but the packaging is amazing. Like,
it's
the
fantastic,
illustrations, the artwork. It's an incredible package. So it's worth it just for that. But the film, maybe not so much. Although the interviews were great. Okay, so let's move on. Jamie, would you like to give us your recommendation?
Yeah, mine's not a movie. It's actually, I just recently stumbled upon a TV series called Black Mirror. Do you know this TV series?
I have seen Black Mirror, and it's amazing.
It is really...
Most of them are amazing, yes.
Yes, it is a really good... It's kind of very dark, very sci-fi, very... speaks to modern society. It's British, correct? And I think it's only on Netflix. I think that's where I saw it. But it's...
And like most British shows, there's like 4 episodes per season.
The seasons
it's
are
like
short.
The Twilight Zone. Like, it's very Twilight Zone-y.
Yes, it's very Twilight Zone-y. Yes. But I would say 10 minutes into Scanners, I was reminded, and mind you, this has been a new series that I've been kind of Netflixing, and so instantly I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Black Mirror, except I like Black Mirror better. So, but I would recommend that. I would just recommend that if you kind of think outside the box, it's just a good TV series to check out. And if you have Netflix, of course.
It's a good show.
It's a Netflix series? Or
no, it's a TV
I think
series.
it's a BBC series, but Netflix has it. And I think they're all up to date, yeah.
But it's really good, and each episode is a different cast. Like you said, it's like the Twilight Zone. Each episode is a different cast. It's a different setting. It's a different reality. And yeah, I recommend that. I didn't have a movie though, so
very good. No, you don't need a movie.
All right.
Don't worry. David, do you want me to go? Do you have a?
Yeah, go ahead. I've got some ideas, but
the only thing I'm going to recommend is another Canadian sci-fi horror film about telepathy, but it's very new. It's from 2010, and it's called Beyond the Black Rainbow. I don't know if anybody's seen that.
No. I've heard about it. I've never seen it.
It is. If you think Scanners is slow and boring at times, then don't watch this. It's deliberately very slow, but it's a very good film. The visuals are amazing. The soundtrack, the music is great. And if you do like Scanners, I think it's sort of a modern Scanners. I think that's the best way to describe it. So, and I think that's also on Netflix. Look at us. We're just recommending Netflix.
I know.
Hey, Netflix, if you want to toss us a few bucks, we could do this every 2 weeks. All right, David, do you have anything?
Yeah, my recommendation is going back to a name I dropped earlier, and it's the work of John Lilly. If you just want to sort of get into some of the kind of mental space and some of the ideas and theories and speculations that might have informed Cronenberg, just do a Google search for John Lilly. He wrote a couple books. The Center of the Cyclone was kind of his most famous. He also wrote one called Lilly on Dolphins, which basically gets into some of his dolphin research, and another couple, The Scientist, which is kind of his autobiography a little later in his career, and another one called Simulations of God, The Science of Belief. And these are all books that I was reading at around the time of watching this movie, so there's a pretty natural connection in my memory of just kind of this kind of far out, what is consciousness? How does the mind work? Why do we believe what we do? And how do different forces shape our opinions on these matters? So, again, John Lilly's probably not a household name to a lot of people, but he's, whether you want to go out and buy a book or just do a little bit of Google research, find a website or two, there's some fascinating information out there. So I'll throw that out there for you.
That's wonderful.
Groovy,
Thank
nice.
you. That's great. David, thank you, first of all, for coming. I really do appreciate it. It was a lot of fun for us.
It was great having you.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Where can people find you? Yeah. What do you want people to know about you?
Well, okay, so my blog is Criterion Reflections. It's a blog spot, just a blogger blog, nothing real fancy there. But just Google that and you'll find it. I write for a CriterionCast.com website. Been doing reviews there and podcasts. So, you can just find my page, and there's a lot of great stuff on that site, movie-related stuff. Not all Criterion, but mostly around that theme. So those are my two main spots. I do a podcast called The Eclipse Viewer. We're going to be doing the films of Nagase Oshima, Japanese director of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Pretty out there kind of guy as well. Yeah. He's very experimental, very stylistically challenging. Every movie he made, he wanted to make very different from the previous one that he did. Intellectual, but also, kind of touches on some pretty sensitive and sometimes scandalous and shocking territory of a different sort than the kind of, body horror that we saw today. But actually, there's some overlap in some of his films as well. So
there's fewer than one exploding head.
Yeah, but there's some pretty incredibly crazy stuff that happens in his film.
No, thank you. And really, I mean, awesome. You're saying that this stuff is a bit heady, but I do know that we have a handful of listeners that also listen to Criterion Cast, and I'm sure Eclipse Viewers. So,
well, and I love making the connection.
Yeah, the message isn't lost on our audience.
No, of course not. Right, and all different moods for all different movies for different moods.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes I want to dig deep. Sometimes I just want to munch the popcorn and have a laugh and have a crowd over and be entertained.
And watch a little Beethoven too. Just a little Beethoven too. I knew you were a fan. I knew it.
Yeah. Oh, I have happy memories bringing my kids to this movie. So, yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so anyway, everybody, you can follow us, as you know, on Twitter, GTGMcast. and we're on Facebook, just Good Times, Great Movies.
It's us.
Jamie, in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The Academy Awards, right?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Are you boycotting? I mean, I know that they asked us to go in place of Jada and Will Pinkett Smith. I'm going to call him Will Pinkett Smith. I think that's not terrible.
You can, yeah.
Okay. So we're
He's heard
not.
worse, I'm sure.
That's right. So we're not going to be boycotting the Academy Awards. I decided to pick an Academy Award-winning film from the 80s. That's right. Now, this film, and I did some research, I think this is the only film in history to win an Academy Award and a Razzie in the same category.
Oh!
And the category is Best Original Song, and the film is Purple Rain.
Wow.
I give it a round of
right.
applause.
Landmark
I
there,
give it
yeah.
a round. I'm excited to jam to this one.
I know. I mean, it's been, one film since we've had music and dancing and all that nonsense. So I feel like we need to get back into it.
Right?
But anyway, that's what we're going to do in 2 weeks. Purple Rain. Everybody watch it before we talk about it. And again, David, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes.
My pleasure, and let's do it again.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. We will talk to you in 2 weeks.
Ciao, ciao. Good night.
I need some help. You're the only one that could give it to me.
Then I think you're in big trouble, chum.